Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the Head of Marketing at Infotools. Today, we're joined by Daniel Berkal, SVP Research at the Palmerston Group. Daniel's team has conducted literally hundreds of energetic market research projects of various sizes and specializes in immersive methodologies and hard-to-reach participants. The recipient of the QALY for Excellence in Qualitative Research, Daniel has worked on some of the most innovative brands in the business and best known for completely immersing himself in consumer environments. Thanks for joining us on the show, Daniel.
Thank you so much. I like that bio, but I have to tell you, my friend, we do the most interesting things in the world.
Very cool. Well, excited, looking forward to hearing about it then. Being our podcast called Now That's Significant, we like to ask our guests what the most significant thing is they're going to share with us. So I'll leave you with the mic.
So I think that we should talk about creativity and research, because all of us work in, I'm assuming that many of the people listening to this work in the research business on either client side or vendor side or even interest-wise. And we often think of research in terms of the data, in terms of the process, but very infrequently we think about the creativity behind it. The idea of doing things that are interesting, not just for interest's sake, interesting that allow an additive kind of element to the processes we all do. And so I've focused much of my career on trying to keep things as creative as possible. And I'll leave it at that. I'm watching your face. We're on a video call, so I can see your face. Yeah. You seem very intrigued.
Yes. So, I mean, I've had a history in advertising. So before I came into the market research and tech world, that's where I spent a good part of my career. So creativity is something that's very dear to me. So what different ways do you mean when you're talking about creativity? Because it can seem a little bit like ho-humish to some people, like, hey, this is market research. We need to toe the tradition line here.
Exactly. So I like to really kind of base it down to sizzle and steak, right? There's whenever you make a steak, there's the meat itself, but then there's also the sizzle, that kind of that thing that draws you into it and makes you look more carefully. And I like to make sure that all the steak that we create has sizzle to it as well, but not that it isn't just sizzle. It isn't just kind of sparkly things pie in the sky out there. I strongly believe in something that I like to call the theater of market research, because what we're doing as researchers is we're theatrically presenting the world the way that we see it and trying to communicate that to clients to make them understand the players, the importance of what their actions, their interactions, and so on. And I think by doing that in a somewhat theatrical manner, it allows it to hit harder to the client, the end client, and allows them to communicate to their peers and their audiences and their communication better.
Why do you think that's important when you think about the traditional ways of approaching market research?
I don't think the traditional ways are wrong. I think that, I mean, I'm a traditional researcher when it comes down to it. Yeah. But I think that being creative doesn't just mean walking in a fancy suit with a haircut and funny glasses. And being creative means acting in a way that's uniquely you, that presents your personality alongside the information in an honest, authentic, natural, but really hard-hitting manner. A way that makes the audience, in this case, who are our clients, who is the people we're reporting to, understand what we are seeing happen in the world. So in qualitative, it's actually relatively easy to add what I would call creativity to things. But in quant also, some of the best creativity I've seen has been in the quantitative space, making data points really come to life, really sing. I think, again, personal opinion is that the research business can use a lot more of dialing things up and making them come to life. And that's the area I focused on.
So one of our prior guests as you were on the show was from the National Transport Authority. So they were in charge of helping to keep our roads safe, people alive, a whole lot of different messages. And they were talking about their work over 25 years where people get numb to an extent of particular messages. So they need to keep on looking at new ways to show things, to help break through and to keep the messages relevant, even though they are talking often about the very same things. So I guess there's a good part of that creativity plays in that.
Oh yeah, I think being numb to a message. So I know I'm talking to you in New Zealand, which is one of the most lauded countries in the world for creative advertising messaging. I mean, there's some incredible work that's come out of your country. But I think it even goes beneath the communication level. It goes to the insight level as well. So I'm talking about myself. On the qualitative side, I can run a focus group, I can do an interview, I can do all these processes that are tried and true and will bring results. But adding just a little bit of manner to make the information sing to our client, and by sing I mean come to life. That's what I think the insights world needs now more than ever, because again, being numb to things doesn't just affect consumers listening to advertising, it affects your clients listening to research messages as well.
Yeah, we all need to engage on several levels, don't we, to be able to cut through.
Totally. And I think that's a huge part of it. I think it's not just limiting ourselves to one modality. We have such a range of tools available to us now, all of us, from on the visual side, audio side. We in the research business can capture the world in a much more natural, authentic, non-invasive way than we ever have been able to before. And that's just getting better and better.
Absolutely. So a little bird told me that you've been running a course on creativity and research recently. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what this was?
I will definitely tell you that. Who is this little bird? That's what
last name in, first name linked.
Okay, yes, that's a nice bird. But yeah, I'm in the middle right now of doing a course. I teach a fair bit, and there's a course right now on creativity and research, and it's designed for qualitative research professionals. It's run by the QRCA, which is a group based in the US. No, I guess it's worldwide, but it's based in the US. And it's really an interesting class. It's involved, this version of it has about 15 professionals, all of whom work in the space quite extensively on a number of brands. And it involves a discussion around how to infuse creativity in 3 really specific areas. In recruiting, so I think in the qualitative space, creativity and recruiting, how you recruit, how you find people, how you find the right people. Because I think all of us in research have had a lot of misfortune in finding humans to speak to us. And so we want to make sure we're getting the right people for the right things and finding them where they live in the real world. The second element is creativity in methodology design. So how can one who's working in qualitative take their business to the next level of methodology design? And the third area is creativity and reporting. That's been a really fun class. It's the second time around we've done this class. And what's interesting from my point of view is listening to all the different angles on our business, the qualitative business that I hear from other practitioners.
Yeah, so if we look at recruiting, first and foremost, what ways do you think creativity helps in that regard?
Okay, so creativity and recruiting, the word creativity is such a nebulous term, right? It's hard to say what you mean by that, but I think that the way I interpret it is looking at something with a new lens, looking at something in a new way. So in recruiting for qualitative projects, we often would historically turn to recruiters and say, I'm looking for 20 people who buy t-shirts and live in New York, or whatever it is, right? You give a list of criteria. But in the world we live in now, there's so many interesting ways that you can connect with people and find them. It can be as simple as going on TikTok or on Twitch or on, but people of a range of styles and communities that are very easy to access and incorporate yourself in, and to reach out to people directly and try to find people who aren't your cheaters and repeaters, those who have come to 100 focus groups and just want the paycheck and to go home. And so I think there's a really good space to look at the way we find humans to take part in research and play with that a bit.
I mean, we had one of our guests a while back even talk about using influencers as a source of recruitment almost. So they're the ones that have got these big audiences. Quite fascinating space.
You absolutely can do that. And I find actually the word influencer is a really dangerous word, but you can use people who are connected to others in a very effective way. And chain recruiting can be really effective, but also playing with even the metric of how you recruit. If you're trying to recruit a focus group and you want to make it more active, recruit a conflict group where 3 people are really opposed to one issue against another 3 people, recruit all 6 into a room and watch that kind of spark fly. You can do that, polarized recruits. You can do, I also like in recruiting, telling everyone in different focus groups to come to the room dressed in a different color or with a different sports team on. And you don't tell them about it just to make it more interesting from their point of view. And then when respondents are more engaged, they're more interactive, and they actually end up being much more useful for the discussion. A lot of it's tricks, but I like them.
Nice. So when you're starting off and you're thinking about methodologies for a particular project you're working on, how would you approach it from a blank sheet perspective, just to think, okay, what could I do differently this time to get what I need out?
So you don't want to do different just for different sake. You don't want to be different just because you can be. You want to look at what your project objectives are. You want to look at what your costs are and what your clients' costs are, and what your budget is. And you want to design things that don't cost you a lot of money, if not less money. But you also want to try to find the smartest route to figure out a problem. And so that word blank slate, I love. I like not using a format, a predefined format, and trying to look at problems as blank slates and saying, hey, if I was just in nature trying to figure out how to do this, how would I do it? And then you can build a project around that. Often we will turn to tried and true like modalities like focus groups or interviews, but you can adapt certain elements of them to make them more engaging for clients, more engaging for respondents, more engaging for your own team. Because all of us, like myself, my team, we're all working too. We want to be engaged. And I think that kind of theatricality really helps get a really good project and a really good process and a really good output.
And then coming just back to the reporting. So obviously we've collected all of our data. Now we want to try and show and let our clients, etc., know what the data is showing, what insights we've had. How do you normally approach that perspective to try and show some new, interesting points in the data then?
Well, so there are various ways of presenting data, and there are various ways of communicating an idea. And you're not limited just to PowerPoint slides. You're not limited just to that. There's sights, there's sounds, there's smells that you can bring into a room if you're doing something in a room, or you can bring things outside of a boardroom. We've used podcast reporting to so when you have busy executives who don't have time to take a meeting, we give them podcasts to take home, and 30-minute kind of podcast they can listen to on the train in and out of Manhattan, let's say, right? And that's a very effective way of getting the voice of your audience, of the participants, coming to life, without changing. It changes the method, the way that data is communicated, but it makes it more, I'd say, interesting, more creative. Again, it's not rebuilding things for no reason. It's trying to find ways to make things a little bit more engaging.
For sure. So what's been some of your feedback on the course? You've said this is a slightly different iteration. You've held these courses before, etc.
Yeah, so the feedback on this course that's going on right this second. So we're recording this in late June of 2023, right?
Yep.
This session, who knows? I'll tell you in a week. I'll tell you how it goes. But the fact is, last year people liked it, so it's been going on again. And like teaching is the most amazing thing, because you get to. I've learned from incredible people. I get to share the knowledge that I've learned along the way. And if it inspires people, or if it gives people new ways of thinking about things, awesome. The feedback, I think, has been positive. People smile on the calls when we have them, but they could be lying. It's hard to tell.
Sure. Time will tell. So we touched a bit before on how creativity can feel a bit like kryptonite for some, when it's mentioned causing some people to recoil or jump back to a tradition. What are some of the ways that you've overcome this potential, I guess, overcome the sorry, mind blank, the propensity towards it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. Like, there's no question that in this business, in market research and insights, there are people who do not want something different, who want just a very clear kind of answer. And in certain industries, in banking, and insurance, and government, those are often more characteristic of those industries for whatever reason, but not entirely by any means. But I think the way to so the person who is running a research company or conducting a research project on the quant or qual side have to be very conscious of your audience. You have to know your audience walking in. You have to know who you're talking to, who you're presenting to, and you have to build things to match their comfort level, their strengths, and their openness. Which again, for podcast reporting, that's why we did that for that audience. We knew they were busy. They didn't have time to come to meetings. Cool. We'll adapt in that way. I think you just like a bank knows their customers. I think insights people have to know our customers, who are our clients, our corporate clients, and it's not only the companies, it's the individuals. Like, I know this is a podcast that it goes public, but I wouldn't say stalk people, but we are aware of who we're talking to before we're talking to them. We're on the client side. We know in general what their career trajectory has been, what they're comfortable with, it seems like so far. So we know where the barriers kind of are, but it's hand-holding.
And I guess being able to show examples of it working in the past is always good as well, before and after. So do you have any examples that you could share with us? From an effectiveness perspective?
So as you say that, you can see my head nodding up and down. I think a good way of selling creativity, or selling a different way of looking at things, or selling a more immersive kind of attitude, is by showing results. We've been lucky enough, I've been lucky enough to have worked on incredible pieces of business that I really, really have like pride for. And one of the real metrics of success for us is when we walk away from a project, is everyone on our team really excited about it? And asking the clients after, how do you feel? Like, how did that go? Right? Those simple kind of questions, they help you kind of tailor things in the future. Examples I have along the way, like the common ones that I say to people to make them excited are, we had a client who did a project who wanted to do research on people who shopped in convenience stores. You know, convenience stores like Circle K's or
Yep.
On the Runs or any of them, right?
Yep.
11. So companies like that. So all of us, yourself, myself, everyone listening to this, we've all shopped at a convenience store before. But if I was to ask you, what is it like? You'd give me a really simple answer, but it's very difficult for you to say what that's like because no one really remembers. You go in for a transaction, you buy a pack of gum and you walk away, right? Or whatever you buy, right? And you don't think about it. But we've walked into these stores hundreds of times. And so in order to understand the convenience store environment, my team, we decided to propose a methodology where we all got jobs working in convenience stores. So I worked for a summer in convenience stores all over the US behind the counter. And I really worked there. I like cleaned the toilets and I took smoke breaks. I don't smoke, but I went out for them anyways. And I'm watching your face when I say that. That's the reaction I often get. So people are very interested in that. But that simple kind of that not trick, but that methodology kind of adaptation makes people more engaged. And people meaning our audience. And our audience in this case was a corporate client who really wanted to get excited about this. And our clients, like our direct clients, have their bosses and their bosses and their bosses. And so if you have like an interesting hook, it really allows people to get to lean in. And so now you want to know, where do we find out, right?
Please tell.
We can talk in the next podcast. But I've done things like that. I've done projects where we go to Vegas for like a weekend to understand what the tourist market in Vegas is like by doing in limo arrival interviews with people as they come off planes.
Wow.
I like playing with place, playing with time, and kind of thinking, what is the best way we can solve a problem? Often it's immersive, but since the pandemic, it's become, even through Zoom and through things like this, it's possible to really create unboxing videos, or there's a range of things we can talk about. I get excited about it, you can tell.
No, it sounds cool. And I guess you're really understanding context when you go in and do those in situ things, aren't you? So
I think you're understanding context more than you would off a discussion, a focus group, an IDI, or a survey, right? Like we live in a multidimensional world. And so our job as researchers, all of our job, is to kind of figure out what the best way is to study something authentically without changing it, but also to kind of immerse ourselves in that world through whatever metric whatever tool we have.
No, very true. So let's say a corporate research team has gone through your course and they've gone and implemented the 3 steps that you were talking about and have creativity flowing through them. If we fast forward a couple of years, what kind of impact would you expect them to have on their organization and perhaps for their consumers?
Well, so when you say they, that's the big question, right? So they often means the people, the humans who have the jobs that are like insights director at a company, or there's ranges of management and directors and levels, and everyone who works at a company wants to be known for something, right? And so I think actually being known as the person who's implemented a creative process, or you always hear awards for most innovative. That's a very common award that companies give to each other. Cool. I mean, I think you're never going to hurt your career as a manager of a corporate research department by being known as the person who implemented creativity, or implemented innovation, or implemented technology or AI. those are not bad things to be known as being progressive in that sense. And so as long as it doesn't compromise, not only doesn't compromise, but also builds better results, I believe, and through my career, and again, this could all turn south tomorrow, but it seems after a 20-year career of doing this, it seems as though this is a very good way of making yourself on the corporate level stand out from your peers within your team, but also from your competition. And so as a company overall, being known as a company that does creative research methods is a smart thing to do. I can't name our clients on this podcast, but when I say we work with some of the most amazing companies in the world, like if I told you who they were, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I got it. And that's how I feel. I mean, I get very passionate about this, you know?
I can see. So how do you, what's the drivers to keep going for you? How do you keep pushing and sharpening, ensuring that creativity is up there with the best of them?
Okay, so the drivers keep going for me. For me personally, I actually teach this in the class. The driver for all of us, for you, for me, for everyone who works in insights, it cannot be money, right? We're all going to ideally, we'll all make money at some point in our lives, and we'll be fine with that. It has to be interest. I want to keep doing things that keep me interested, that keep me engaged, that keep me excited. If I can come home at the end of the day and be really excited about something, if I can, tell my family, like, I did the coolest thing today, and I can't tell them what it is, but I'm still like, I had that glow in my eyes, that's a really good driver. And I learned many years ago that if you base things on like title or money, it's never going to turn out where you're passionate about something. So my kind of the checkbox that I try to get always is, am I interested? Am I excited? Does it make my eyes literally like go up? Do I see in a mirror? Do I see myself smile? If that's happening, then we're doing the right things.
Yeah, cool. And what advice would you give to those out there that are considering creativity in what they're doing, and maybe just going for that safer route?
Well, I don't think. Okay, every single human can be creative in their own way. One of the first things I tell people is you be you. Like, I can tell you everything I do, and I think I'm the best at being me of all the people in the world, but no one else is going to do that. So, and you can be the best at being you. I think you take the things you love, take the things that you're interested in, and build your career and your world and your ability to get insights around those things. And then it really becomes a natural process. You don't feel as it's not something where you don't need permission to play. In order to be creative, you just take the stuff that you like already and dial that up a bit. Whatever that stuff is, and it's gonna be different for every person. I'm speaking very openly and nebulously, but we're on a podcast.
No, that's fine. I mean, because technology as well has played a real big part in terms of how we can be creative, and just in all aspects of our work. Chat GPT is obviously one of the big ones that we're all talking about at the moment. So those are interesting things to be able to have with us in terms of tools for trying to do new things in our research, etc.
Oh yeah, so we've used AI so heavily, but we use it in, I think, really useful ways. I don't believe AI is a replacement for smart insight development, but I do believe that a lot of the steps along the way AI make easier. So if you're talking about ChatGPT and those kind of things, for screener design, we often will use things like that. There's a great company out of New Zealand, Yabble, that does kind of an interface of it's not ChatGPT, but they use OpenAI as their backend. That's a wicked job. But we've used AI in terms of, so for screener design, for brainstorming. That's a really effective way. We don't make it client facing, but also I think we use are on the back end, like for video editing. We were talking before this podcast started. We use Descript so heavily because it's the smartest program I've ever used. It makes video editing, and I have nothing to do with them, so I'm not going to hype them up for any reason. Another program that I use, that my team uses also very heavily now is, so in Adobe Photoshop, they've, in the last iteration, in the beta versions, they've added the generative AI into Photoshop. You're nodding. Have you used it?
Yeah, I haven't, but I've seen it at work and it's amazing.
Okay, so not only we use it, I use it so heavily. I put a proposal together this morning. So right now, for you, it's morning. For me, it's night. But this morning for me, I put together a proposal for, it was for a spirit, so a particular brand of spirit. And I didn't have an image to use for the front page of the proposal. And so I took a clip art thing off the internet. I found like a small little tiny box image of that product. Then I put it into Photoshop, had it expand it, right, using generative AI. It does it incredibly. And then I changed around certain elements to make it so that it looked like a very natural thing. I told it what kind of style I wanted it to look like. And again, we're on a podcast, so it's audio. The way this looks is incredible. And that would have been impossible. I mean, finding images for proposals is such a good use of AI.
That's true. Yeah, it is an exciting time. And I guess if we keep our eyes open, willing to learn, willing to just slightly push ourselves into a little bit of uncomfort, we can get to spaces which we'd never thought of, even 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually speaking on using AI in qual at a conference, the Worldwide Conference of Qualitative Research in Lisbon in October.
Yeah, the interesting thing with me about this all is, so with the tool that we have, mainly for analyzing quant survey data, a lot of our customers say they get back about 30% time from using a tool like ours compared to the more manual ways of doing things. Interestingly for them, they don't necessarily use it to do more and more and more research, but they use it to increase their confidence levels, for instance, and work on their projects, sharpen them up more so. So it's not always about doing more, it's often doing better. So
yeah, I think definitely technology is a tool. It's not a replacement. And like, I like the idea of doing better. I think that's actually our marching orders for all of us, in your business and my business. We just got to do better. We have to do things, and you're never at a point of stasis. All of us are on the client side, on the corporate side, on the vendor side, quant side, qual side. We can all do better.
Right. I mean, you look at Clippy. Clippy never gave up, and look at him now. He's off doing our work for us.
That's right.
Cool. So before I wrap, any final any points you wanted to touch on in terms of creativity and research?
Honestly, no. I think that if someone has listened to this entire thing and they're walking out of this not being inspired, the question is why. I want every person listening to really think about, what can you do yourself to make whatever business you're in a little bit more exciting for yourself. That's probably the first step at being more creative.
True. And it's that curiosity that is really innate in us market researchers as well, isn't it? So that's the thing that we're driving our curiosity. We want to understand people better, and looking at slightly different ways of doing things can be that key that can unlock a whole new world.
Yeah, totally. Like I love research conferences because of that. You get all these people who are just inherently curious about the world. And none of us would have jumped into this business had we not been really interested in what's going on around us. And it's a never-ending story.
It really is. Well, Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, Daniel. It's been a fascinating chat, and like you said, I hope it has inspired some to get out there and really push what they're doing from a recruiting perspective, from a methodology perspective, and from a reporting perspective as well. There's always slightly different angles we can take, and there can be plenty of insights that we can dig up fresh from just looking at things with slightly fresh eyes. So thank you so much.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure speaking.
You're welcome. And thank you to everyone else who's joined us. And as Daniel said, listened up until this point. If you did like what you hear, feel free to check out Daniel and the team at the Palmerston Group. Also, feel free to share the podcast with those that you might find it interesting as well. Leave a review on the podcast as well. Would be very grateful for that. Thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.